You know those moments like in movies where some explorer stumbles across some crazy lost city, like swallowed by jungle vines and stuff. Totally makes you wonder what happened there, right? Well, that's what we're diving into today, lost civilizations. And you guys sent in some really cool stuff for this. We've got articles, even it's like a whole YouTube transcript someone sent. So we're going to try to pull out the most interesting stuff for you, and figure out what might have happened to these societies.
Yeah, what's crazy is how different all these cases are, right? Like,
Yeah.
your sources show that there's no one answer for why civilizations collapse. Each one's its own mystery.
Exactly. And for you, we're focusing on a few big ones today. We'll go way back to Catalhuyuk, maybe the oldest city in the world, then to Angkor, this huge jungle metropolis, and we'll touch on the Anazi and Easter Island too, see if there are any like common threads or if each disappearance is totally unique. Ready to jump in. Let's start with Catalhuyuk. This one is way, way back, like almost the beginning of cities as we know them.
Okay, so Catalhuyuk. It's in modern-day Turkey, and it was popping between 9,000 and 7,000 years ago. That's the Neolithic period, folks. The crazy thing, and you probably saw this in the stuff you sent, is just how old it is. Some people say it's the oldest city in the world. Can you imagine a society way back then building something so complex?
And the way they built it is just nuts, right? Like, forget about streets. Kakalhoyuk was like a giant beehive, all connected, no roads, houses just built right up against each other. And to get inside, you had to go through the roof. Then you'd walk across rooftops to get around. So different from how we do things today. What do you think about that kind of design?
It really makes you rethink what a city even means,
Yeah.
right? Like, being that close together must have meant their society was super different from ours. And here's the thing, they were doing all this while also farming wheat and almonds outside the city. And inside their houses, they did some really interesting things. They put bull skulls everywhere and buried their dead under the floors. Seems like they had a really strong connection to, like, the afterlife and stuff.
Yeah, and here's what blows my mind. They were doing all this before they had iron tools or even a written language. So no metal tools like we think of them, no writing, but they weren't primitive at all. They had awesome art, public rituals, the whole deal. And get this, there might have been 10,000 people living there. That's a lot for that time period. How did they manage that without all the stuff we think you need to support that many people?
That's the thing, right? 10,000 people without advanced tools or writing. That means they were super organized and good at managing resources, even if we don't totally understand how they did it. And here's the biggest mystery of all. After about 2,000 years, Catalhoyuk is just abandoned. And like you probably read, we have no idea why. No signs of a big disaster, no war, nothing. They just left. And that lack of a clear answer, right, makes you think maybe societies can change drastically without some huge catastrophe, which is a pretty big idea to wrap your head around.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Did the climate change? Did their way of life just like stop working? Or maybe they just decided to move for some reason we can't even imagine. No written records, so we're just guessing. Okay, let's jump ahead a few thousand years. Let's go to Southeast Asia, to the Khmer Empire, to the amazing city of Angkor.
Angkor. Everyone thinks of Angkor Wat, right? That incredible temple. But it's important to remember, and your sources probably talk about this, Angkor Wat was just one part of a much bigger city. The city was thriving from, like, the 10th to the 13th centuries AD, like the Middle Ages in Europe.
And when we say bigger, we mean huge EE. Seriously. Some people think Angkor might have had 1 million people living there. 1 million. That's crazy for that time period. And it had roads, canals, connecting the whole area. Some researchers think it was the biggest city in the world back then. 1 million people in a city before cars, factories, all that. It makes you think differently about our cities today, doesn't it?
What's so cool about Angkor is that we can see how they planned it out and managed the water. Those canals weren't just for boats. They were probably used for irrigation to feed all those people and to deal with the monsoons. They were really good at engineering and organization. It shows you how powerful the Khmer Empire was.
But then it all went downhill. Unlike Catalhuyuk, we have a few ideas about why Angkor declined. War is a big one. The kingdom of Ayutthaya conquered Angkor in 1431. That was definitely a huge blow to the Khmer Empire.
Yeah, 1431's a big year, but it probably wasn't just that one event. People started leaving Angkor almost 100 years before that. So there must have been other problems happening too, like natural disasters, maybe really bad monsoons followed by droughts that could have messed up their farming and those fancy water systems they had.
And we can't forget about money. Some of the sources you sent talk about how the Khmer Empire started to rely more on trade and less on farming. That might have made people leave the capital to find new opportunities. So it sounds like Angkor declined because of a bunch of things happening at once: war, environmental problems, and changes in the economy.
Exactly. It wasn't just one thing, it was pressure from all sides. And what's left today, a lot of it still hidden in the jungle, are those amazing buildings. They show how important Hinduism was to the Khmer people and how advanced their culture was. It's a reminder that even huge civilizations can disappear. And, these examples of Catalhoyuk and Angkor show how different the process of decline can be. Now let's jump to some other parts of the world. What about the Anasazi in the American Southwest?
Oh yeah, the ancestral pueblones. Those cliff dwellings they built are just incredible. Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, those places are just mind-blowing. And like Catalhoyuk, they abandoned those settlements around the 13th century. Nobody knows exactly why. Some people say there were huge droughts that made it impossible to farm. Others say there were fights and problems within their society. Another case of a thriving culture just disappearing.
And then we've got Easter Island, home of the Moai statues, of course. This one's a little more complicated. We have more clues, but people still argue about what happened and what was most important.
What's interesting about Easter Island is that it looks like they had both environmental and social problems. Deforestation seems like a big one. The Rapa Nui people probably cut down way too many trees to move those giant Moai statues, but also for farming and fuel. That could have ruined the soil, made it hard to grow food, and just messed up the whole ecosystem.
And your sources probably mentioned climate change, too. Maybe there were droughts, and maybe there were just too many people for the island to support. Some researchers think there might have been fighting between different groups on the island, too. And then Europeans showed up in the 18th century, bringing diseases and more exploitation.
Yeah.
That was really bad for a population that was probably already struggling. So Easter Island is a case of maybe destroying their own environment combined with climate change and bad stuff from outsiders. It's a lot different from Catalhoyuk. Oh, and don't forget about other examples you might have found, like Tiwanaku in South America. Another civilization that seems to have just vanished. Adds another layer to this whole puzzle, doesn't it?
So, looking at all these examples, Catalhoyuk, Angkor, the Anasazi, Easter Island, what are some of the big takeaways here? What are the things that really stand out?
Well, one thing that's clear is that sometimes we know why a civilization disappeared, and sometimes we just don't. With Catalhoyuk, it's still a total mystery. We see this advanced city just abandoned, and we have no idea why. But with Angkor and Easter Island, it's more complicated. It seems like a lot of different things went wrong at the same time. That tells us that civilizations don't usually collapse because of one single event. It's a process with a lot of different factors involved.
Yeah, and the environment seems really important in a lot of these cases. Climate change, droughts, natural disasters, using up too many resources like trees. These things seem to make societies less stable and less likely to survive. Kind of makes you think about the environmental problems we have today, doesn't it?
For sure. It shows that even advanced societies can be really fragile when it comes to the environment. But it's not just about nature. Social problems are important too. Wars, fighting within a society, changes in the economy that disrupt how things work. These things can really destabilize a civilization. Think about Angkor being conquered or the possible conflicts on Easter Island. It's a combination of environmental and social pressures.
So, what's the point of studying all this? Why should we care about these civilizations that disappeared a long time ago? We have all this technology and stuff now, so why does it matter?
It matters because it shows us what can happen in the long term. It shows how our actions and the environment can have a huge impact on societies, even advanced ones. These weren't just stories in a history book. These were real people dealing with problems that are similar to the problems we face today. Climate change, limited resources, keeping society stable. By understanding what happened to them, maybe we can learn how to avoid the same mistakes. It makes you wonder, are we more similar to these ancient civilizations than we think? Are we facing some of the same risks?
That's a really good point. So, to wrap things up, we've looked at the mysteries of Catalhoyuk, where we have no idea why they left, and Angkor, where it seems like war, environmental problems, and economic changes caused the decline. We also talked about the Anasazi and the Rapa Nui on Easter Island, showing that there are a lot of different ways a civilization can disappear.
And even though we don't always have the answers, archaeology and history can still give us clues about how these societies worked and what happened to them. It's like a puzzle, and we're slowly putting the pieces together.
So here's something to think about. All these environmental and social factors that we've talked about, what can we learn from them? What lessons can we apply to our world today? It's something to keep thinking about even after this deep dive is over. Thanks for listening.